In the distant reaches of the Andromeda galaxy, far beyond the reach of Earth's finest telescopes, there existed a planet known as Zalnara, a world that shimmered with vibrant hues of violet and emerald, and where the stars above were more than just distant lights, they were the whispers of ancient gods, echoing through the winds of time. Zalnara's inhabitants, the Shiraxians, were known throughout the cosmos for their otherworldly beauty and their enigmatic ways. At the center of Zalnara's political and cultural might was Queen Zaylith VIII, an alien monarch whose allure was so potent that even the moons of Zalnara seemed to bend their light in reverence. Zaylith was a creature of legend, her skin a silvery, shimmering hue, her eyes the deep indigo of a stormy sea, and her elongated limbs flowed like silk in the wind. She ruled with a quiet but undeniable intensity, and her court was both a place of political intrigue and sensual power. Now, on this fateful day, Zaylith was about to encounter a species she had only heard about in whispers: humans. More specifically, she was about to meet one human, a notorious, arrogant and impossibly charming space captain named Bryn Holbrook. Bryn, for all his swagger and dashing good looks, was, to put it mildly, completely out of his depth. He was the captain of the human vessel Daring Light, a ship that had stumbled into Zalnara's orbit while chasing a rogue asteroid, and ended up being pulled into its gravitational pull. After a series of miscommunications involving strange signals, malfunctioning translators, and a series of disastrous negotiations that had involved the accidental disintegration of 3 ambassadors, Bryn had found himself summoned to the royal court of Zalnara. Bryn had never imagined his ship would end up in a galactic cart room, much less in the presence of a queen who could very well bend space and time with a mere glance. He had spent the entire night attempting to figure out the etiquette unsuccessfully, while his loyal but somewhat confused crew had busied themselves trying to repair the ship with parts they definitely didn't have. He straightened his uniform, adjusted his unruly hair for the 5th time, and entered the palace hall, which was more dazzling than any human architecture. Columns of molten light, floor-to-ceiling emerald crystals, and an air that hummed with energy seemed to welcome him. Captain Bryn Holbrook, from the human race, a voice echoed through the hall. It wasn't loud, but it was everywhere, through the walls, the floor, and the very air around him. And it was deep, almost like the rumble of an ancient thunderstorm. He swallowed, unsure if he should respond with formalities, humor, or try to impress the mysterious source with his charm. Standing at the far end of the hall, on a throne made of living stardust, was Queen Zaylith. She regarded him with cool, calculating eyes, her gaze flicking from his boots to the sweat gathering at his temple. He was, quite obviously, distracted. Not by the grandeur of the room, no, that was mere background noise to the singular vision in front of him. Zaylith's presence was like a beacon, her aura almost tangible as it rippled through the air, like the pull of a black hole that you couldn't escape, no matter how hard you tried. Captain Bryn, Zaylith purred, her voice rich with something Bryn couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't malice, nor was it affection yet. You were the first of your kind to step onto Zalnara in, well, millennia. Bryn could only offer a shaky smile, trying to mask his anxiety with bravado. He was a man of action, not a diplomat. He was here to negotiate, not to get lost in the throes of some alien queen's mysterious power. Still, he couldn't help but notice the way the room seemed to tremble as Zaylith's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, Your Majesty," Bryn began, his voice more confident than he felt. "It's a real pleasure to meet you. I'm sure you've heard so much about humans. We're known for our incredible abilities." Zaylith's lips curved into a smile that was less reassuring and more dangerous. "Oh, I've heard the tales, Captain," she said softly, "and they did intrigue me. You're a curious species, aren't you? Unpredictable, reckless," and she paused, eyes twinkling with something that couldn't quite place. "Sensual." Bryn blinked. "Sensual?" Zaylith's smile only widened as she gracefully descended from her throne, her movements like liquid silver. She was within a few feet of him now, and despite the vast differences in size and species, the air between them seemed charged alive. "Oh yes, Captain Holbrook. Your kind is known for its passions." Bryn's stomach flipped, and he felt an uncomfortable heat spread across his face. He cleared his throat. "Well, I wouldn't go that far." Zaylith's eyes gleamed with mischief, her voice dropping lower, as if she were revealing an ancient secret. "Don't be so modest, human. I've seen your kind's performance in the cosmos. The way you express yourselves. Your interactions. It's truly electrifying." Bryn had no idea what she was talking about. Did she mean that time he'd flirted with a shuttle technician on one of the outer moons of Alpha Centauri? All that time he had tried to charm an entire station of robotic workers into giving him more fuel for free. He felt the heat rising in his chest. Well, that's flattering, but I think you might be exaggerating. We're just, normal." Zaylith stepped closer, so close that Bryn could feel the heat of her body through the strange shimmer of her skin. He wasn't sure if it was her presence or the fact that he was being examined like this that was causing his heart to beat faster. She tilted her head, a wicked gleam in her eyes. "I think I've seen enough," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I want to know more. How does your species experience intimacy? You must show me." Bryn's mind went completely blank. Wait, he stammered. "Are we talking about? Are you asking me?" Zaylith's lips parted slightly, and before he could finish his thought, she interrupted with a mischievous smile. "I want to see it for myself. Your sensuality." Bryn swallowed hard. This was not going according to plan. The last thing he wanted was to get tangled up in some intergalactic diplomatic faux pas or worse, alien expectations. He had no idea what was happening now, but it wasn't the sort of human interaction he had anticipated. Zaylith stepped back, her eyes gleaming, and Bryn felt a strange mix of dread and excitement. Bryn blinked, his mind still trying to catch up with the conversation that had just taken place. The Queen, this impossibly beautiful, mysterious alien, had just asked him to demonstrate human sensuality, and she wasn't joking. "Your Majesty, I think there might be some misunderstanding here." Bryn's voice cracked slightly, betraying his rising panic. Zaylith didn't seem to be listening. She glided across the floor with a grace that made Bryn feel like an awkward, clumsy human. She was so close now that he could smell the intoxicating scent of her, something sharp yet sweet, like stardust mingled with rainwater. It was all so overwhelming, and he had no idea what to do. Was this some alien cultural test, or was she actually propositioning him? Zaylith stopped directly in front of him, her body towering over his. She looked down at him, the corners of her mouth curling up into a slow, teasing smile. "You're nervous, Captain," she observed, her voice soft but rich, like the hum of a forgotten melody. "But you shouldn't be. I won't bite unless you ask me to." Bryn swallowed. He tried to steady himself, but the situation was like trying to navigate an asteroid field in the dark. "Well, I'm sure there's been a mix-up. I don't know if we humans operate the same way as you do," Bryn stammered. Zaylith tilted her head to the side, her long, dark hair cascading in a wave of silvery light, as if she were a living constellation. "Oh, we have heard many things about human romantic gestures, the way you connect." She took a step closer. "Tell me, Captain Bryn, how does it feel when you are drawn to another? When the chemistry, the attraction, the physical pull becomes undeniable?" Bryn wasn't entirely sure whether she tried to break the ice or break him, but something about the way she said physical pull sent an unsettling shiver down his spine. He coughed awkwardly, trying to think of the most diplomatic way to back out of this conversation. "I think what you're referring to might be something we call flirting, or, I guess, attraction," he managed to say, but his voice wavered. "But it's not all, physical. There's also emotional connection. It's more of a mutual understanding." Zaylith's smile deepened, and she began to pace around him, her long fingers trailing lightly across the edges of the crystal columns that lined the hall. "Mutual understanding," she repeated. "Fascinating. The Earth species as such, complicated creatures. And you think this is enough? This mere understanding to bond?" She came to a halt right behind him, and Bryn could feel the weight of her gaze, even though he couldn't see her. "When my species bonds, it is a complete experience. Mind, body, and soul all inextricably tied together." Bryn couldn't help but feel a bead of sweat slip down the side of his face as he imagined what a complete experience might involve with a creature like her. This wasn't the kind of sensuality he had ever been trained to deal with. His encounters with alien species had been mostly business-oriented, with a little flirting here and there, definitely nothing involving the totality of the mind, body, and soul. Zaylith moved in front of him again, her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that left him breathless. "I am curious about you, Captain. Very curious. Your people's romantic expressions, your gestures of attraction. I've seen them in the archives, but it is not the same as experiencing it firsthand." Bryn's throat was dry. He was sure that if he could think clearly, he would be running away from this bizarre encounter. But instead he found himself inexplicably drawn to her. Not just because of her beauty or her otherworldly charm, but because of the way she looked at him. like he was a puzzle she desperately wanted to solve. "And I want to understand it fully," she murmured, stepping even closer. She was so close now that he could see the faint shimmer of her translucent skin, the subtle rise and fall of her breathing. Her scent was intoxicating. "I need to know, what does it feel like when a human is aroused?" Bryn's heart raced. His thoughts flew in 1,000 directions at once, but the most dominant one was, "Oh no, she's serious." He quickly raised his hands in a placating gesture, trying to put some distance between them. "Look, Your Majesty, I think you're fucking the wrong guy about this." He scratched his head nervously. "I mean, I don't know if I'm the best example of whatever it is you want to know." Zaylith's eyes narrowed, her lips parting slightly as if she were amused by his unease. "Are you embarrassed, human?" she asked, her voice soft but with an edge of wicked humor. "Why do you resist so? Surely you must feel it too." "The pull between us, the attraction." Bryn's brain screamed, "No, don't say it," but his mouth betrayed him. Maybe it's just, the heat in the room, or the gravity fluctuations. Yeah, that's probably it. Nothing to do with, attraction." Zaylith stopped, staring at him for a long moment, and then she laughed. A deep, melodic sound that echoed through the entire hall like a storm breaking over a calm sea. It wasn't a mocking laugh, no. It was more like she found his flustered state incredibly amusing. "You humans," she said, shaking her head with a smirk, "you really are strange creatures. But you misunderstand one thing." She took a step forward, her long fingers brushing lightly against his arm. "We are not so different after all, Captain Bryn. You feel it, don't you? That warmth, that desire to be close." Bryn's breath caught. There was something undeniable in the way she was speaking, something that transcended alien language, culture, and even species. Maybe it was the shared energy between them, the unspoken recognition that they were both drawn to one another in a way that felt almost primal. And the air between them was electric. Zaylith's eyes glimmered with something like victory. "I think we have much to explore, Captain. Much to learn from each other." Bryn opened his mouth to respond, but was silenced when Zaylith raised a finger to his lips. Her touch was cool, but her gaze burned hotter than anything he had ever experienced. She leaned in, her lips hovering just inches from his ear. "This could be fun, don't you think?" Before Bryn could respond, before he could even fully comprehend what was happening, Zaylith stepped back, giving him a playful smile as she turned toward her court. "Bring him to the chambers," she commanded, her voice commanding yet teasing. "I think it's time we get a better understanding of this human sensuality." Bryn stood frozen for a moment, his mind an incomprehensible whirl of confusion, fear, and something else. Fun, was that what she'd said? He looked around the grand hall, but it was like the universe had temporarily stopped making sense. The court of Zaylith, an elegant swirl of crystalline light and otherworldly energy, had transformed into a place where the laws of reason were no longer applicable. The queen, who looked like she belonged to another galaxy altogether, had just invited him to the chambers. And not for an intergalactic negotiation, no. This was something else. Before Bryn could process his next move, a group of Zyrexian attendants, slender, ethereal creatures with iridescent wings, approached. They moved with effortless grace, their movements almost imperceptible, like they were gliding across the surface of air. One of them, a tall, regal being with deep emerald eyes, bowed. "Captain Bryn, please follow us." His voice, though melodic and soft, had the authority of someone accustomed to leading humans through this kind of process. Bryn swallowed. He had never imagined he'd end up in an alien royal chamber, much less with an alien queen who was clearly more than willing to explore the more intimate sides of human nature. His instinct was to resist. His brain screamed at him to say something, anything to get out of this. But his feet had other ideas. He hesitated for just a moment before his curiosity, mingled with the unmistakable feeling of being utterly out of control, took the lead. What could he say? He wasn't exactly an expert in alien diplomacy, but if the Queen wanted to learn about human sensuality, then maybe there was a way to turn this around. Or at least, a way to keep his dignity. The attendants led him through a series of winding, luminescent corridors that seemed to grow increasingly surreal. The walls pulsed with a soft blue glow, and the air shimmered like water, creating ripples of light that made Bryn feel like he was walking through a dream. He couldn't stop wondering what exactly Zaylith had in mind. Was this some kind of cultural ritual, a test of endurance, or was she genuinely curious about human sexuality, with no ulterior motive. Suddenly they entered a chamber that could only be described as a blend between a royal spa and a cosmic lounge. The room was vast, bathed in a soft, lavender-hued light that seemed to be emitted by the very floor beneath them. The walls were adorned with shimmering fabrics that floated like gossamer, suspended by the faintest energy fields. There was a strange, pleasant aroma in the air, like the smell of wildflowers mixed with the faint scent of ozone. Bryn's breath caught as he took in the surroundings. The chamber was elegant, but the sensuality of it was undeniable. Plush cushions, velvet-like fabrics, and soft, glowing orbs filled the space. A feeling of warmth radiated from the room, as if the environment itself was designed to evoke comfort and relaxation, the kind of relaxation that made you forget where you were or who you were. Zaylith stood in the center of the room, her silhouette framed by the shimmering light. She was utterly at ease, a vision of calm grace and beauty. Her long, silvery hair cascaded down her back like liquid stardust, and her eyes, those deep, indigo eyes, were locked on him with an intensity that made Bryn feel both terrified and drawn in, like a moth to a flame. "Captain Bryn," Zaylith said, her voice soft but with a playful edge. "Welcome to my private space. Here we are free to explore without the constraints of formalities or misunderstandings." Bryn could hardly believe what he was hearing. Explore? He wasn't sure if she meant explore in a literal sense, or if this was some kind of alien metaphor for something much deeper. Either way, the air was thick with unspoken tension, and his pulse was racing. He cleared his throat, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Your Majesty, I really think we should clarify what you mean by explore. I mean, I'm all for cultural exchange, but this seems a little..." Zaylith took a slow, deliberate step toward him, her eyes glinting with mischief. "I mean explore, Captain," she said, her voice dropping lower. "I want to understand what makes your species desire." She placed a hand gently on his chest, her touch light, almost teasing, but the sensation sent a jolt through Bryn's body. Bryn's mind went blank. He couldn't process it. 1,000 thoughts jumbled together. Was this some kind of alien seduction ritual? Was she actually testing him? Or was this real? I don't think this is Bryn stammered, feeling a wave of heat rush to his face. His body was responding to her touch, despite his best efforts to remain calm. He wasn't prepared for this level of whatever this was. Did this humor on her part, or was she truly trying to experience human intimacy? Zaylith smiled, a knowing look dancing in her eyes. She leaned in close, her breath warm against his ear. "Oh, Captain Bryn, you really are adorable when you're flustered, but don't worry, I am patient. I'm very good at understanding, after all." Bryn swallowed hard. Good at understanding, right? He could only imagine what that meant. But as she pulled back slightly and regarded him with that captivating smile, his instincts screamed at him to turn back to demand a clearer explanation or to make his exit. Yet there was something about her allure that made it nearly impossible to leave. The air around them was so thick with electric tension that it seemed to hum, like the gravity of the universe itself was trying to pull them together. Before he could gather his thoughts, Zaylith gestured toward the cushions scattered around the room. "Come, Captain, we shall sit and talk. I have questions I wish to ask her, and I promise you will not be forced into anything you do not want. We will explore, but only if you are willing." Bryn blinked, still processing what she had just said. She wasn't demanding anything from him, she wasn't putting any pressure on him. In fact, it sounded like she was offering him a choice, which was unusual for someone of her stature, and for the kind of power she wielded, the Queen could easily dictate her will. He hesitated, then took a tentative step forward, his eyes still locked on hers. He wasn't sure what to make of her invitation, but something deep inside him was curious. Zaylith sat gracefully on one of the cushions, patting the space next to her. "Come sit with me. Let us talk, Captain. Let me understand you better." Bryn took a deep breath, glancing around the chamber one last time. The energy here was undeniably different. There was no pressure, no need to impress, no need to perform. Just two beings from completely different worlds, sitting together in a strange moment of shared understanding. Or maybe, in this case, misunderstanding. But the idea of exploring, of sharing a part of himself, even if it was only the human way of seeing things, was tempting. And perhaps there was no better place to start than now. He took his seat beside her, trying to mask the nervous tension in his body. "Okay, Your Majesty," he said, a little more firmly now. "Let's talk. But Just to clarify, we're talking about human sensuality, right? And not some alien mind meld thing, right? Zaylith chuckled softly, her eyes sparkling. Oh, Captain, I would never subject you to anything so invasive. We shall remain physical beings, for now. Bryn nodded, though he still wasn't sure whether that was reassuring or even more confusing. Bryn sat down beside Zaylith, trying to keep his hands from trembling. He was still grappling with the surreal nature of this entire situation. The alien queen was curious about human sensuality. She wanted to understand desire. She wanted to explore. And here he was, sitting on a plush violet cushion, wondering if he had accidentally wandered into some intergalactic Tinder date. So Zaylith began, her voice dripping with mischief. Tell me, Captain Bryn, how does your species experience pleasure? Bryn blinked. Well, it's kind of complicated. He waved a hand awkwardly, hoping he sounded like he knew what he was talking about. You know, humans are very physical beings, but there's also a lot of emotional stuff involved. Like connection or, chemistry. Zaylith tilted her head, clearly intrigued, but her eyes sparkled with that same wicked amusement. I understand chemistry. You mean the energy between you and another being? Bryn nodded cautiously. Exactly. It's the vibe, you know. If you're vibing with someone, it just flows. Zaylith leaned in, her eyes narrowing playfully. Vibe, she repeated, drawing the word out, like it was the most exotic fruit she'd ever tasted. Interesting. You humans are so primitive yet so complex. Bryn rubbed the back of his neck, sweating a little under the weight of her gaze. Well, I mean, it's not like we all get it right every time. Sometimes the vibe is off, you know? It's like you're trying to dance to a rhythm that's out of sync. Zaylith's eyes lit up with amusement. Dancing? Ah, of course. I have seen many Earth species engage in what you call dancing. It is an expression of joy, of connection. Bryn blinked. Wait, are you suggesting we what, dance now? Because I'm not exactly known for my dancing abilities. Zaylith gave him an incredulous look. You think I expect you to dance? She laughed, the sound rich and melodic, like bells ringing in a distant temple. No, Captain. I was simply observing how human sensuality seems so messy and yet so fascinating. You don't need to dance. But I wonder, she leaned in closer, her voice dropping low. What happens if you do, if the energy is just right? Bryn's face turned crimson. I really don't think we should be. At that moment, the Daring Light's translator, which had been malfunctioning for the past 24 hours, and had been a source of much irritation earlier, suddenly buzzed in Bryn's pocket. Bryn let out a loud, almost relieved sigh. Hold that thought, Your Majesty, he said, quickly fumbling for the device. It beeped twice before producing a garbled message in human English. Captain Holbrook, we are stranded. The ship is falling apart. Also, we ran out of snacks. Shall we come get you? Bryn stared at the message for a moment, then looked up at Zaylith. She raised an elegant eyebrow, a grin playing at the corner of her lips. Stranded? I see. I suppose your crew is in need of rescue. Bryn coughed, suddenly very aware of how absurd this all was. Yeah, I mean, they're fine. They can probably figure it out. I probably shouldn't leave them hanging, you know? He scratched his head nervously. Also, I may need to process the sensuality lesson later. Zaylith regarded him with a knowing smile. I understand, Captain Bryn. You are resistant to the exploration of your own nature. Very well. We shall take this, slowly. Yeah, Bryn said, backing away ever so slightly. Slow sounds good. She stood, her tall, slender frame casting a shadow in the soft light. But I must ask, what about the vibe you feel now? Her eyes narrowed. It's not good enough. Bryn stammered, caught between the surrealism of the moment and the desperate need to escape what could only be described as a cosmic dating situation. Well, I mean, it's great, but I'm more of a slow burn kind of guy, you know? Not really the... Zaylith chuckled, clearly enjoying his discomfort. Ah, I see. So it's a matter of timing. Humans and their insistence on control. Bryn sighed in relief, grateful she hadn't gone full alien queen on him. Yes, exactly. Timing. Very important. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a teasing whisper. Perhaps your crew could use some education as well. Don't you think? Bryn blinked rapidly. Wait, no. We're not bringing my crew into this. Absolutely not. She laughed again, louder this time, the sound like music filling the chamber. "You are too funny, Captain. Perhaps this vibe thing is not about timing at all. It is about willingness." Bryn took a step back, raising his hands. "Willingness? That's, sure, but maybe not with the queen of an alien planet." Zaylith smirked, her eyes glittering. "Do not worry, Captain. I will not force you to understand. Not today, anyway, but I will be watching, Captain. And the next time we meet, you will not be so resistant." Bryn's mind was a mess. He had no idea how he had gotten into this situation. One moment he was trying to fix a ship. The next, he was sitting in an alien queen's chamber, discussing the very essence of human desire, all while trying to keep his dignity. "Sure, yeah, next time," Bryn muttered, already preparing to make his escape. "But, I think you could, teach my crew a thing or two about, timing." Zaylith's grin only widened as she waved her hand, summoning her attendants to lead Bryn back to the daring light. As Bryn turned to leave, Zaylith called after him, her voice full of amusement. "Remember, Captain, vibe is important, timing is just an illusion. You'll learn." Bryn stopped in his tracks, eyes wide. "Wait, what?" But she was already gone, her laughter echoing through the chamber like the hum of distant stars. And as he walked back toward the ship, Bryn couldn't help but think, what the hell just happened? And more importantly, why did it feel like he had just been set up for an intergalactic dating show?